Hey, folks, another great book at the library, Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum. It's called Delta Force. That's right, and it's not the movie with Chuck Norris, Delta Force. This is the real Delta Force. This book was written by Colonel Charlie Beckwith. He developed, it was his idea of Delta Force, and it was actually a copy of the British SAS, Special Air Service. He served with them in an exchange program in the 60s. He liked what he saw so much that he wanted to start his own similar unit to Special Air Service, SAS, of the British Army. Now, of course, we had Special Forces since World War II. We had the Rangers, we had Special Service Force, which was a combination of badass American and Canadian soldiers, and we had Marine Raiders. So, Charlie Beckwith, he had an idea. He wanted to do the same as the SAS, what he saw in the 60s, being on exchange duty. So he started it. The Pentagon allowed it, and he started Delta Force, which we still have to this day. And there's some troopers, man. Those guys are some pretty bad. We don't hear much about them. They're very secretive on what they do. Anyways, 70s, he developed Delta Force. First thing that pops up, they got a big mission coming up. The Iranian students captured a bunch of Americans at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took them hostage. And so they approached Charlie Beckwith, said, get your Delta Force guys together and start training. Well, there was some disagreement in the Pentagon. White House, Colonel Beckwith didn't like it. The Pentagon came up with another unit called Blue Light, made up of Green Berets, and they were going to have them train and go rescue the hostages. Well, Colonel Beckwith, he wanted to get in there, so some things were changed around, and Delta Force was again signed that mission. So they started training, and all branches of the service got involved. Air Force had their refueling aircraft. Air Force had the aircraft to get the Rangers to Desert One, which is a place in Iran where they picked that as a staging area. Of course, they also had the Navy 7th Fleet off the coast of Iran in the Persian Gulf. They were using Marine Corps helicopters. They had an Army Ranger platoon also at Desert One, and they were to secure that area. So while the refueling was going on and Delta was loading up in choppers, they would be securing that area. And, I'm not going to tell you the whole story of the book, but they actually engaged some Iranians there. And off the coast with the 7th Fleet, they had the 31st Marine Amphibious Unit, which today is known as the Marine Expeditionary Unit. So they had a reinforced battalion of Marine infantry off the coast. They had helicopters, of course, they had tanks, artillery, and other aviation assets. But they had that, they were all involved. So the training, most of this book is about that training for Operation Eagle Claw. An interesting story about Florida, that they put up structures to mimic or copy the embassy, and during the day they would take them down because they were afraid of the Soviet satellites figuring out, or the Soviets saw in their satellite photographs, figure out what they were doing. They were preparing for a mission. So during the day they would disassemble these structures, trying to keep it very secretive. It's interesting to read in the book how they had these pilots and everybody else keep it extremely secretive. In the beginning, it wasn't Marine pilots, it was Navy pilots. Then they changed them, and you read the book and you'll see why they did all that. Anyway, so we all know, if you're a student of military history, you all know what happened with Operation Eagle Claw. It was a failure. They had 8 helicopters. They needed 6 to get the mission done, and only 5 were eligible or available, serviceable to complete the mission. And so they definitely needed 6. Colonel Beckwith called it off, and people discussed it years later. They talked about it in military classes. Could they have continued? Could the Rangers, after they rescued the Americans, get them on the helicopters and escaped a different way out of the city? Could they have done that? They had a Marine infantry battalion reinforced. Could they have come in and assisted with other helicopters? And the discussion goes on, I think, to this day. But because of this operation, the U.S. Army came up with an idea like, let's not share, let's not get everybody involved. Let's specialize. And of course, they have Delta Force, and then they came up with the 160th Aviation Regiment, I believe. Regiment, it might be a battalion, 160 Regiment of the U.S. Army's helicopter unit. They specialize in special forces missions, and these guys are very highly reliable, highly trained, and they get the job done. And we've seen them in the past here and other operations doing that. So a lot of good things came out of Operation Eagle Claw. And anyways, back to this book, and you need to check it out. You need to come down to the library. Again, it's like having a library card. You fill out a registry, all your contact information, and just in case you forget to bring the book back, we will contact you. But anyways, come on down. Don't buy it. If you go to Amazon, you pull up Delta Force, you'll see all Chuck Norris DVD and VHS tapes available. But this is Delta Force, written by Charlie Beckwith. If you type it in that way, you'll see it. But hey, why buy it? We have it at the museum. Great. Thanks so much for listening, and check out this book, especially if you're a student of military history, and especially if you enjoy reading about or learning about special forces. Bye-bye now.